Hi everybody, this is Bonnie Barger with Bonnie Bay Crochet, and I am really excited to bring to you the Throw of Grace. Let me go ahead and put some better shots of that right here. The particular verse that inspired me for this design is found in Psalm 16, where it talks about boundaries and limitations and how they have fallen for us in pleasant places and having a beautiful inheritance. And so that's mostly the theme or the inspirational theme that I went with designing this. And you can see this has several different colors going from light to dark, and this works really well with other color schemes as well. If you want to use blues or purples or just use your imagination, I think it would also look outstanding in just a single light color should you want to make it more of a monochromatic design. Well, let me go ahead. Before I show you what you're going to need, I need to let you know that this is video number 1 of a series of 3 that will be released sequentially week by week. And I'm really looking forward to seeing your designs too. I would love to put together another showcase once this design is completed, and you can always send that photo of your beautiful work to me at bonniebay@me.com. I would love to see your work, and if I have your permission, would love to add this to a future video showcase. Well, let me go ahead and show you what you're going to need. Below, you will see a photo of the color palette that I will be using for this. The colors starting with color number 1, which is the cream color from right to left. This yarn is Cascade Yarns Anthem, which is 100% acrylic, 100 grams or 3.5 ounces, 186 yards or 170 meters per ball. The number of balls that you will need of each color will be listed in the video description below, as well as in the written pattern that is available from my lovecrafts.com store. For this project, you're going to need 2 crochet hooks. The main gauge hook I will be using will be the I or 9 or 5.50 millimeters. And for the popcorn stitches, you are going to need one size larger. I'll be using a size J or 10 or 6.00 millimeter crochet hook. And as always, I recommend that you have a yarn needle and a pair of sharp scissors handy. One other thing that I highly recommend that's going to be very beneficial for this particular design is if you have at least 4 stitch markers. We're going to be using these to mark our chain 2 corners once we get to the low front ridge. If you don't have stitch markers like this, anything that you have, for example, an earring, leftover earrings that have the ones that close in a particular way, also work well as makeshift stitch markers. Or if you have contrasting piece of yarn that you can tie in the corner, that will work as well. To begin, I'm going to use a slip knot, and I'm going to chain 4, and I'm going to make a circle by working a slip stitch in the first chain that we just made, and it makes a little circle, little donut or Cheerio, as I like to say. Now I'm going to chain 2, and working only into that center, we're going to work 20 double crochets into the middle of this loop. And as you see, I am working them in such a way that I work over this strand so that once I complete this round, I can just simply trim that loose end, and it'll be one less strand that I have to hide later. So go ahead and work 20 double crochets. Now that I've completed those 20 double crochets, this would be a good time to go ahead and double check and verify that you have 20 stitches, because that is going to be very important going forward. Okay, now we're going to join with a slip stitch to the top of that first stitch. And for the record, this chain 2 does not count as a stitch throughout this project. It just is a chain 2. So if I give you a stitch count, I am actually referring to the literal double crochets of the round. We're going to chain 2 for round number 2, and this is where we begin to make the corners. We're going to work 1 double crochet in the same place as joining, chain 2, and then we're going to work 2 double crochets. And again, this does not count as a double crochet. Just wanted to be very clear about that going forward. Now we're going to work double crochets in each of the next 5 stitches. That's 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now let me pause a minute just to verify. So we have the corner here, we have the chain 2 where we joined, or rather continued for round 2, and then a double crochet, chain 2, and then 2 double crochets worked in that space, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches, 1 in each stitch. Now the next stitch, we're going to work another corner, but our corners are going to be different. After completing those 5 double crochets, we're going to make another corner. I'm going to make the corner and then I'll explain what is happening here. We're going to work 2 double crochets, chain 2, and then 1 double crochet for this corner. Now that may seem odd to you, and the reason is we are going to try to make this side the long side, and then these sides are going to be the short side, and they will have more shape once we finish this round. Okay, so now we're going to double crochet in the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. Now it's time for another corner, and for that corner we make a double crochet in the next stitch, chain 2, and then 2 double crochets worked in that same space. After that, 1 double crochet in each of the next 5 stitches. And that is 3, 4, and 5. And let's just verify that we have our corner, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now it's time for another corner, and we're going to work 2 double crochets in the next stitch, chain 2, and then 1 double crochet. And now we're going to work a double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. Join with a slip stitch to the top of the first stitch. Again, this does not count in the stitch count at all. I want to say that again, just because if you use this chain 2 as a stitch, your stitch count, I guarantee you, will be off, and you don't want that to happen. Okay, so let's pause and look at this. You can see that instead of a square, we are forming more of a rectangle. It looks a little rounded at this point, but as we go forward, the rounds that we're going to add are going to change that. And let me be very specific on the number of stitches per side as we go. Okay, so on this side, you should have a total of 9 stitches here, 9 stitches here. That's including the corners, 5 and 5. That gives you a total stitch count of 28 double crochets and 4 chain 2 corners. Okay, for round number 3, we're going to slip stitch to the chain 2 corner, chain 2, and we're going to work 1 double crochet, chain 2, and then 2 double crochets, 1, 2, and now we're going to begin front and back post stitches. So we're going to start with a front post double crochet, followed by a back post double crochet. If you've never worked front or back post, don't be afraid of these. Instead of working in through the top, they're actually easier. We just wrap our hook like we're going to work a double crochet, and the hook goes around the body of the stitch like you're giving it a belt, and then you complete the stitch as normal. That's a front post. For a back post, you come in the back door, okay, coming in the back side of the stitch, and the hook goes around the body and goes back out the back door, and then you complete the stitch on the back side. It's as easy as that, and don't be afraid of just jumping in and giving it a try. So after working these all the way across, we are working every stitch across. By the way, we're not, omitting the first or the last stitch. We are working them all as we work in the round. Now keep in mind which is the long side. So we are working the long side of this rectangle here. So we're going to work 2 double crochets for this corner, chain 2, turn, and then another double crochet in that same space, but just one, because now we are working along the shorter side. And again, we're going to work those front, alternating front and back post double crochets across this side. I'm going to work this with you around the entire square, because I want to make sure that you understand it. But once I do this, I'm going to give an assignment. Okay, so now we're going to work this corner, and again, we're still on the short side. So we work 1 double crochet in that chain 2 space, and then chain 2, 1, 2, and now we're working along the long side. So we're going to work 2 double crochets. This is a way to keep this side longer than the short side. Now we're going to work again front and back post double crochets. So go ahead and work these until you get to the next corner, alternating front and back post. After working those across, now remember you are on the long side, and if you're not sure, you can just always take a moment and step back and look at this. Just count the number of stitches. So you should have more stitches on the long sides. Chain 2 and then 1 double crochet in that same chain 2 space, and now we just have 5 more stitches, front post and back post, alternating that along this last side. That's 3 and 4. Okay, now this is very, very important. As you round the corner to the last stitch, we have the chain and the double crochet. If you're going to make a mistake in the stitch count, it would be because you work a stitch around the turning chain. We don't want to do that. So what we're going to do is we are going to work around the turning chain and the last stitch at the same time, just like that. It's very important. You're going to have to do it this way at the end of each of these rounds for the center portion. And then we're going to join with a slip stitch. And you can take a look at what we have. Notice that I am not turning at the end of each round, but I am continuing on to the next. That's not going to be the case throughout the entire project, but it is for this section. Okay, so now for round number 4, we're going to work a slip stitch to the chain 2 corner, chain 2, and again, this is the short side, so we're going to work a double crochet, chain 2, and then we're going to work 2 double crochets, since now we are working along the long side. And then we bring in, we're going to start with a front post double crochet, but as you add these stitches, just make sure that it alternates. So you're going to work a front post here, so that means this will be a back post and this will be a front post. So we'll start with the front post. And the reason I say that is this is going to change on the shorter ends as we progress. So I'm going to go ahead and work these alternating front and back post double crochets across to the next corner. After working over all these stitches, still On the long side, I'm going to add 2 double crochets in the corner, chain 2, and I've turned 90 degrees, and work another double crochet, but just 1. Now this is where it's going to get tricky. Now you have a front post here, so this next stitch is going to be a back post. So for this short side of this round, we are going to start with a back post double crochet for the short side of the rectangle, and then a front post. And the reason that we are having to change by starting that with a back post instead of a front post is because we're adding an odd number. We're just adding 1 stitch to this side, but since we're adding an even number to this side, you can maintain, working by starting a front post instead of a back post. I'm not trying to make this extra difficult, but you do have to pay attention so that you keep the pattern consistent. Okay, and then we're going to end with a back post along that edge. Now we're going to work 1 double crochet, chain 2, and then working along the long end again, 2 double crochets to form that corner. And again, we have a front post, so that will be a back post, and this will be a front post, so we go ahead and start with the front post. Just looking at it going backwards just helps to know what you need to do for the next part. So I'm going to go ahead and work these alternating front and back posts until I get to the next corner. Now that we've gone to the corner, we're going to work 2 double crochets, chain 2, and turn, and then 1 double crochet for that corner. Again, the 2 double crochets because of the long side of the rectangle, and then 1 double crochet for the short side. And again, that was the front post. This will be a back post. So we start this edge with a back post. Okay, and then 5 and 6, and then once again we come to where the chain 2 and our last stitch are side by side, and we're going to work a back post over both of those. Make sure you do not work a stitch over that chain, turning chain, because that will again make your count inaccurate. And then slip stitch to the first stitch of the round. So this is what you have after 4 rounds. Just to be clear, the stitch count at the end of round 4, you should have 9 stitches across this side, and you should have 17 stitches across the long sides. And that gives you a total of 52 stitches plus the 4 chain 2 corners. Now we're going to work 3 more rows, just like I've shown you here, and each time you're going to add 1 extra double crochet in the chain 2 corner for the short sides and 2 for the long sides. Now as you work the short side, be mindful that as you begin round number 5, you'll be working in this stitch, so you'll start round 5 with a front post, round 6 will start with a back post, and round 7 will start with a front post on the short side. The long sides, each side, since you're adding 2 at the beginning of each, will always begin with a front post double crochet, just by nature of adding even numbers to these stitch counts. Once you complete round number 7, you should have a total of 15 stitches on the short side, and you should have 29 stitches on the long sides, giving you a total of 88 stitches in all. If you want to look for the specific stitches row by or round by round, you can check the written pattern for that information. This is what you should have after completing 7 rounds. Now we are going to continue, but in a slightly different way. Let me explain, and then I will start you on round number 8. We are going to continue working the front and the back post, but we are going to change the number of stitches in the corner. We are going to change to working half double crochets in the corners, in the chain 2 corners, and we're only going to put 1 half double, chain 2, 1 half double. And I'll go ahead and start with that now so that you understand what's happening. So for round number 8, and this is what we're going to do for rounds 8, 9, 10, and 11. So 4 rounds made in this fashion. Chain 2, I've already gone ahead and slip stitched to the chain 2 corner, and then we're going to work a half double crochet. Very important, this is a shorter stitch. Chain 2, and we're going to turn to work along the long side, but we are only going to be working 1 half double crochet, so the corners are going to be changing. Okay, now we're going to work a front post and a back post, and you're going to alternate that all the way across, just like we've been doing. Now on the repeats of this, when we begin round 9, you are going to start rather with a back post along the long side, because now we are only adding in an odd number. So you just have to pay attention whether you start with a front or a back post on every side of the square or rectangle going forward. So I'll go ahead and work this to the next corner. Once we get to the corner, again, a half double crochet, chain 2, and then again another half double crochet. Again, just, I know I'm repeating myself, but I just want to make this very clear that we are back to just 1 half double, chain 2, half double for these corners. Now working along the short side, and we have a front post here, so this must be a back post. So we'll start with a back post double crochet and then front post. So go ahead and work this all the way around for round 8, and then I will show you how to begin round number 9. Now we're at the end of round 8, and I just wanted to point out one more time that this is the chain 2. Do not work a separate stitch around this, but join this with the last stitch here, and we're going to work those together in that back post double crochet, join with a slip stitch to the first stitch of the round, and then go ahead and slip stitch to that chain 2 space once again. And for round, well, before I show you round 9, let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here. So now at the end of round 8, you should have 17 stitches on the short sides and 31 stitches along the long side. The total count for the stitches is 96 stitches plus the 4 chain 2 corners. Okay, for round 9, 10, and 11, it's going to be done in the same way with the chain 2, and we're just sticking to 1 half double crochet on each side for the chain 2 corner. And then again, like I said before, you have to be careful how you start this. This was a front post, so this must be a back post. So this side starts with a back post, etc. So go ahead and work rounds 9, 10, and 11 in the same manner. This is what you should have after completing 11 rows, and you should have 23 stitches across the short sides, and you should have 37 stitches across the long side. Okay, so now we are ready to begin row number 12, and we are going to do something different with this. Go ahead and slip stitch to the corner, chain 1, and we're going to work single crochets. Single crochet in this corner, chain 2, turn 90 degrees, and work another single crochet. And this is what we're going to do for all the corners, and simply work a stitch in each stitch across. Now as you do this, notice that I pulled this back a little bit because that first stitch, the 2 loops, can sometimes get covered up by these single crochets. So make sure that you don't omit the first stitch, because that is going to mess up the stitch count if you do. So make sure that you crochet in the top of that first stitch, and then each stitch all the way across and around. When you get to the next chain 2 corner, again, it's just single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, and then I will show you the join at the end of this round. Now, as we get ready to finish round 12, I just wanted to again point out this is the turning chain, and here is a stitch. So you can put your next single crochet there. Make sure you don't add in an additional single crochet by mistake because of that turning chain, and go ahead and make a join with a slip stitch in that stitch. So now we're ready to go on to rows 13 and 14. We're going to chain 1, and I am going to turn. This is the first time I believe we have turned in this entire project. So just do pay attention to the turning as well, because some rows we will turn at the end and some rows we will not. And I'll try to be very specific in the written pattern and the verbal instructions in this video. Okay, I've gone ahead and I do have 1 chain. Now this is very similar to the low front ridge, except this is called the low back ridge or low back rib. Either of those words have been used for this stitch. And we're going to skip the first stitch here, and then we're going to go to the next stitch, and we're going to work a slip stitch. Don't worry about the stitch count on this. It's essentially going to be the same as the stitch count of the last stitch. But what's going to count the most is the stitch count on the row that comes, or the round that comes after this. This is mostly a decorative round. No stitches will be added. Okay, so we are going to work slip stitches, working in the back ridge or the back loop only. Okay, this is a little different, but very, very doable. So just work slip stitches all the way until you get to the corner. And actually, let me stop right here and do one thing before we get to those corners. And let's go ahead right now and get your stitch markers and mark all 4 of the corners like this. I promise you'll thank me later for this, because if we don't mark these, I know it's going to be a little more difficult to find these chain 2 corners once we've worked in the stitches surrounding them, which is what we're doing this round. Okay, so I have all of the corners marked with the stitches, or the stitch markers rather. Okay, so now we're just going to get back to this, and I am going to continue working these slip stitches in the back loop only. So go ahead and do that until you get to the corner, and then I'll show you how to proceed from there. All right, I am near the corner, and this is the last stitch that I'm going to work in with the slip stitches on this side. I'm going to completely skip this chain 2. I'm not going to work in it at all. I am going to work in that on the next round. But what we're going to do here is we're going to go right from this last slip stitch in that single crochet, and we're going to go to the next one right over here, which is the first one along the next side. So you can see now why I wanted you to mark these, because otherwise they are nearly impossible to find. All right, so go ahead and slip stitch in each stitch using the back loop only until you get to the next corner, and we will do this again. Before we do, let's just take a look at how this looks in the front, and you can see how this curves towards the front. This will be easier to see once we finish round 14 as well. Now I'm approaching the next corner, and this is that last single crochet, and I'm going to skip the chain 2 corner and go right to the next single crochet, which is right there. Let me just show you the front side. So it's right here, and that's the next loop I'm going to work that slip stitch in, just like that. And then we just continue on around, working in that back loop. So go ahead and continue around the other 2 sides of this rectangle, and I will show you how to join this and begin the next round. After working this all the way around, and I have worked my last slip stitch in the last single crochet along that side, and so what I'm going to do now is locate the very first, actually this is the chain 1 where we started, and go ahead and do a slip stitch, and after that we are going to turn, and we now have the front side facing us again, and you can chain 1, and then working in the chain 2 right back here where it is marked with the stitch marker, and that is what's going to help you find it. We're going to work a single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet in that chain 2 space, so that we have our corner, and we can go ahead and remove this stitch marker, and then working along the long side, we are going to find the single crochet. Let's go ahead and find it. It's right here, and so here is the loop for that. This is the remaining loop that we did not work in, opposite of the loop that we worked in here. I know this is a little tricky to see. If you locate the stitch, then you can see the back side right there, or actually let's look at the back side this way. We worked in this stitch and then this stitch, and then you can see the next loop. The next loop is going to be here, and then here, and then here. Okay, all the way around. I know sometimes these are can be a little tricky to see, but if you want to look at the stitch from the back side, you might be able to find it more readily. You want to make sure that you're not working in these loops, because this is what is giving us that nice surface texture and to help define the texture on this project. Okay, so we're just working single crochets in that remaining loop. Let me just let you take a look at this again. You can see that it is the remaining loop of that single crochet. I want to be very deliberate here, because I know this is probably going to be the rounds that trip people up, and I want to make sure that you have very clear instructions. So this is what it should look like as you go around. So I'm going to go ahead and work this to the corner, and then I will show you how to work the next corner. So after working to the next corner, and let me show you the back side so that you see the next thing that I have is the chain 2, which is marked clearly with the stitch marker. And now we're going to work another corner, which is a single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet in that same chain 2 corner. Let's go ahead and remove our stitch marker since it has completed its job for this round. And I'm just going to continue this all the way around, finding out where that next single crochet is. And again, look at the back. If you see the back side of this single crochet, and you see the loop right on top right there. So go ahead and finish this, and I will show you the join at the end of this round. Let's go ahead, and before we do that, let me just go ahead and show you how this is looking. You can see that nice ridge right along here. It does curve around here, around the corner, because we skipped the chain 2. But then you have this nice corner here being formed, which will continue to get squared off as we go. So go ahead and finish this all the way around. This is what your piece should look like after you've completed 14 rounds. I hope you enjoy this nice raised texture all along the perimeter. Okay, so let me give you the stitch counts. At the end of this round, you should have a total of 136 stitches, and that is 27 across the short edges. Now, especially where the join was over here, I'm going to take this apart and show this to you again, but make sure you have 27 stitches here, 27 across the bottom, and along the long sides, you should have a total of 41 stitches. And of course, you have those 4 chained to corners as well. Okay, so let me pull this back for you and show you how I joined this. Now, the last single crochet that I crocheted was right here, and this again is the chain 1 where we went to the back loop, and this is the first single crochet that we crocheted in that corner. So go ahead and just join with a slip stitch. Okay, after we've done that, we're ready to move on to the next round, which is going to be round 15, which is also round 1 of the cable stitch. Go ahead and slip stitch to the corner, just like this. And we're going to chain 1, single crochet, chain 2, add another single crochet in that chain 2 corner to form the corner. Okay, so now we are ready to work the cable stitch. So to begin the cable stitch, we are going to single crochet in the very next stitch. Make sure you don't accidentally omit the first single crochet along the side, because sometimes this single crochet can be over the top of those loops. So make sure you pull back on these a little bit and you work that first stitch. And after we do that, we're going to, after I get my yarn out of the way, chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, single crochet, and that next stitch. Now we are going to turn to work in the 3 chains that we just crocheted, single crochet in those, 1, 2, 3, and notice I'm just working along the side of the chain, and that's all you need to do for this. In that next stitch, we're going to work a slip stitch. Now I'm going to bring the yarn to the back side. Again, this is just an easier way to turn. And I'm going to pull the cable back, and those 2 stitches that we skipped, we're going to work single crochets in those. 1, 2. Let me do this a couple more times for you. Chain 3. Skip the next 2 stitches that we have not used. 1, 2. And then that third, go ahead and work a single crochet. Now we turn to work in the chain, and we work a single crochet in each chain. 1, 2, 3, slip stitch, bring the yarn to the back of your work, and pull this cable back to reveal the 2 stitches that we skipped. Make sure you work through both loops of those 2 stitches. And there you have your cables. Let's do this one more time. 1, 2, 3. Skip the next 2 stitches, single crochet in the next, and now we turn to work in the chains. 1 single crochet in each chain, after we do that, we're going to work a slip stitch in that next stitch, bring the yarn to the back of your work. You can pull this cable back, reveal those 2 stitches, and single crochet in the 2 stitches that you skipped. I have worked these cables all the way across, and I have a total of 13 of these. Let me count these with you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And you should have 1 stitch left at the end of this side. Right there, I've crocheted that single crochet in that next stitch. And then we're going to work the corner, single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet. Go ahead and turn to work along this next side. Again, starting in the very first stitch, single crochet, chain 3, skip 2, single crochet in that next stitch, and then again turning to work in the chain. 1, 2, 3 single crochets, and then a slip stitch, etc. So go ahead and bring this to the back, and then we're going to work this all the way across, and then again working in the 2 stitches that we skipped. So go ahead and work these across the shorter side. After working these across the short side, I have a total of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cables. We have 2 stitches left, so go ahead and work a single crochet in each of those 2 stitches, and then now we work the chain 2 corner with a single crochet, chain 2, and a single crochet worked in the same space. So go ahead and repeat that across the next 2 sides, and I will show you the join at the end of this round. But let's go ahead and take a look at how beautiful these are looking so far. So just for the record, as far as extra stitches, in addition to the cables, you should have 2 extra stitches, and then that does not include the chain 2 corner with those 2 single crochets, and you should have 1 extra stitch, and then you have the corner on the long side. Okay, so now we're ready to work row 2 of the cable, and what we're going to do for that is we're going to go ahead and slip stitch to that chain 2 corner. Then we're going to chain 1, and we are going to turn to work along the back side. Okay, so now remember we had 3 stitches, so let's go ahead and we're going to work single crochets in those 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so those are those 3 standalone single crochets. The one that was part of the chain 2, the single crochet, chain 2, single crochet corner right here, and then the 2 additional stitches. Now working behind the cables themselves, we are going to work it this way. We're going to work 2 single crochets in that next stitch, and then as you pull back on this a little bit to get the single crochet where it was attached, we're going to crochet 1 single crochet. Here's the next cable. We're going to work 2 single crochets in that stitch, and then 1, after pulling back on this a little bit, 1 in that one. So we're going to do this behind each of the cables. 1, 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then 1 in the next. So essentially, when you're working behind these cables, you're going to have 3 single crochets behind the cable. Now that does not include the 3 stitches right here that we worked at the beginning that were independent of the cables. So let's just go ahead and I'll work this across the row with you. 2, and then 1. 2 single crochets in that next spot, next stitch, and then 1. 2 single crochets in the next, and then 1. 2 single crochets in the next, and then 1 single crochet. And we have one more cable to work behind. So we work the 2 and then 1 so that we have 3 stitches behind that. Okay, now we have one additional, let's just look at the front just to verify. Okay, so now we actually work 2. We're going to work a single crochet in the very first single crochet where this cable was started, and then 1 in that chain 2 corner, and then we get to the chain 2 corner. We're going to work a single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet, and then we're going to turn. And let's look at this before the cable. We have 1, 2 stitches, so working across the long end of this, we're going to work 1, 2 single crochets. Those are the ones that were independent of the cables. Now we're working behind the cables, and again we work 2 single crochets and then 1 single crochet. So we have a total of 3 behind each of these cables. So go ahead and work this all the way around, and I'll work the next one. 2 and then 1. So we have 3. Let's look at the end of this, and let's look at it with the front side facing. So at the end of this, after these 3 stitches behind this cable, you're going to have 1 stitch here and 1 stitch here. So make sure you work 2 independent stitches, and then you work the chain 2 turning chain, which you'll work the single crochet, chain 2, and a single crochet. So go ahead and work that all the way around. After working the chain 2 corner, we're going to join with a slip stitch to that first stitch of the round. And let's go ahead and turn and take a look at what we have after 16 rounds. Okay, so now the next 2 rounds are going to be repeating the cable rounds again. So let's go ahead and chain 1, and we're going to slip stitch again our way to the chain 2 corner. I'm going to chain 1 and work the corner, single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet again in that same space. And now working along the long side, we are just going to continue working the cable stitch. This is cable stitch row 1. Work it to the next corner, and I'll show you how it ends at the other side. Okay, I've worked this across the long side all the way to the corner, and notice you have 1, 2 stitches that we're going to skip. Let's go ahead and do the chain 3, and go ahead and make the single crochet in the chain 2 corner as you form that last cable. And we're going to go ahead and work that last cable with you, just so that I'm clear. Go ahead and bring the yarn to the back, single crochet in those next 2 stitches that we skipped, and now we are going to form the corner working in the same place again. Single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet, and then we will begin the cabling on the short side. Okay, I wanted to just give you a brief look at that. So we now have 15 cables along the long side. So again, we had 13 cables in the first set of cables, and then the second set we're going to have 15. So go ahead and work the cable stitch along the short side, and I will show you the end of this side. As we work across the end of the short sides, we're going to skip the next 2 and then single crochet in that last stitch along the side. And I'm going to go ahead and finish this with you. Single crochet in each of those chains, slip stitch in the next stitch, bring the yarn to the back, and working in those 2 skip stitches. And that brings us to the chain 2 corner. So go ahead and work a single crochet, chain 2, and a single crochet in that corner. And now we're ready to again repeat working along the long edge and then the short edge. So go ahead and finish this round, and I will show you the connection at the end. This row ends by working in that last single crochet as you crochet the last cable, and then we're going to join with a slip stitch to the first single crochet of that chain 2 corner, and go ahead and slip stitch your way to the chain 2 corner after that, and then we're going to turn, chain 1, and we are going to single crochet in the first stitch for that chain 2 corner single crochet, and then we are going to continue to work 2 single crochets in the next space, and then 1, because now you're working directly behind the cable. So just to be clear, we have a single crochet in the 1 single crochet. Here is the chain 2 space way over here. We have not worked that yet. We will work that at the very end of this round, and then we begin working the 2 single crochets and then the 1 behind each cable. So go ahead and work these all the way around, and as you work row 18, you should have 35 single crochets across the short sides, and you should have 49 single crochets across the long side, and that is including the chain 2 corners, and that's a total of 168 stitches in this round. In an attempt to help you to keep the stitch count accurate as you work along the long edge, make sure that you don't accidentally add a stitch, because you've already worked in it right here, but it's tempting to add an additional stitch here. You don't need to put one there. Just go ahead onto the next stitch that has not been worked as you work the long sides, and then go to the corners where you work the single crochet, chain 2, and the single crochet. Just want to try to be as clear as possible, and do double check that you have 49 stitches on the long sides and 35 stitches along the short side. And I'll just go ahead and start the short side for you again. You have 1 stitch here, which is a standalone stitch, and then you're working behind the cable after that, where you work the 2 single crochets and then the 1. So just wanted to try to make that as clear as possible so that we keep on our accurate stitch count. Working the final corner of this round, single crochet, chain 2, and then another single crochet, and then we're going to join with a slip stitch, and let's go ahead and turn to have the front side facing. Let's take a look at where we are. Right now we are going to work a low back rib, but before we do that, let's go ahead and chain 1, and we are going to slip stitch our way to that chain 2 corner. After slip stitching to that corner, go ahead and chain 1, and then we are going to turn with the back side facing us once again. Now we are going to be working in these stitches, and it's a little tricky because this is a single crochet here in the chain 2 corner, and then this is the join, and so we are going to be working the low back rib. So we're going to have we're actually going to skip this stitch because this chain is going to fall in front of that stitch. So we're going to go to the next stitch, which is right here, and that will be our first slip stitch like that. You can see how this other stitch lays in front of this stitch, and we are going to work that slip stitch all the way around just like we did before. And let's go ahead and take a little pause here and do what's very important and mark these chain 2 corners once again. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm taking the time with the camera running because yes, this is as important as that. Just want to be a good example here of how to do this in as painless a way as possible, because these chain 2 corners are very difficult to find, but then by connecting them to a stitch holder you can hold them out and see them quite readily. Okay, there we go. So now I'm just going to continue around working the low back rib, low back ridge, however you'd like that to be said. And we're going to work in that remaining loop. I'm going to go ahead and turn. We should have the back side facing as we work this. Whoops, let's just get the one loop around. And remember, as we go around, once we come to the chain 2, we are not going to work in the chain 2. We're going to skip this just like we did before. So we would work our last slip stitch here, skip the chain 2, and then go immediately into the next loop of that next stitch, going down the other side. So making sure that you skip these chain 2s again, just like I showed you a few rows back. So go ahead and complete that round. This is round 19. Now I've come to the end of this round, and we do have our chain 2 corner to skip, and I'm going to join with a slip stitch in that first chain, which also, as you remember, lays in front of that first stitch. So we work a slip stitch, and before we do a chain 1, we have a color change to manage. I am going to go to the next lighter color, and this is color number 48 of the Cascade Anthem yarn. So let's go ahead and get this ready. And we're going to work a slip stitch. And notice again, I've skipped the chain 2 space here. So we're going to do a slip stitch. And let's go ahead and chain 1. And now we are going to turn. And it's time for us to make a color change. We're going to go to color number 2. Before we do that, let's go ahead and pull this a little bit tighter there. And I'm going to make the color change by pulling this through like this. And I am going to turn to have the back side facing once again. So now we're ready to begin working in the remaining loop, and we're going to work 37 stitches. So I'm going to start in the first stitch here. There we go. It's a little tricky because of the join, but we can't make sure we don't omit that stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and work these stitches again. This is the lower back ridge, and this is row 2 of that stitch, and I do have the back side facing. I'm going to go ahead and work these across. Now as I'm working across, I am only going to have 36 stitches because the 37th stitch is going to be in the chain 2 corner, which I've already taken my marker, my stitch marker out, but it's right here. So we're going to add another one in here at the end of this round. So you need to keep that in mind as you count your stitches, because it's really easy to get off on your stitch count. Now, if there's a chance that your stitch count is off by 1 or 2 stitches around the sides, or either side of this particular project, there is an easy solution. You can always add additional stitches in the corner. You can add up to 2 stitches on each direction of the corner should you need to do that in order to get your stitch count even for the next stitch. That's not going to be something that's going to hurt the design whatsoever. So if your stitch count, if you found that you've gotten off maybe during the cable stitching, which is very easy to do, you can just add or even take a stitch away from the row if you need to, simply by skipping maybe the last stitch, or if you need to add in a stitch, you can just add them in the chain 2 corner. Okay, I know I'm repeating myself, but I don't want you to feel like this is a lost cause if the stitch count gets off just a little bit. I've tried to be very deliberate to give you as many stitch counts as I can so that this is a joyful journey. And you can always check the written pattern should you decide to get that, and download that and check off the rows as we go. After working these across, I've gone ahead and worked the stitch in that turning chain, and I'm going to chain 2 and then another single crochet right where that stitch marker is. Let's go ahead and remove that so it doesn't cause us to miss out on any stitches. So now we're working across the long side, and let's go ahead and working in the remaining loop, single crochet in each of those stitches across until the corner, and then again when you get to the corner, work the single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, and don't forget to double check your stitch count after you complete the stitches along that edge, and then go ahead and finish the rest and I will show you the join. After working this all the way around, we are going to end with a slip stitch worked in that first stitch of the round, and notice I did bring the color change in the knot to the back side. Now let's go ahead and turn, and I want to show you how nicely this color change works with this. Okay, so we have that completed. Let's go ahead and chain 1, and now we are going to slip stitch to the corner. So after slip stitching to the chain 2 corner, we're going to chain 2, and for the corner now we're going to work a double crochet, chain 2, and another double crochet for that chain 2 corner. And now we are going to begin working the honeycomb stitch. And in order to begin, we're going to start on the long side of this project, and we're going to work 1 double crochet in that first stitch. So after working a double crochet in that first stitch, we are going to begin the honeycomb stitch in the following manner. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and the third single crochet. We're going to work a front post treble just by working the hook around the body of the stitch, and then we're going to make another treble and around the next stitch. These are called front post trebles. Now this is where it could get a little bit tricky, but hang with me, it's not as bad as it may seem. We're going to work front post trebles in this stitch and in this stitch, but we're going to work them behind these 2 stitches in the following manner. Bring your hook into the hole right here, and then we're going to work it around the next, or that first skipped single crochet, and then we're going to bring it into the back side into this hole again, and we're going to do the next stitch. If you have trouble locating them, you can use the nerve endings in your fingers to find those stitches. Okay, so that's half of the first honeycomb, or at least the base of it. Skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble in each of the next 2 stitches. Now working in front of those last 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble in this stitch and then in this stitch. And in the next. Just like so. And so now we have the foundation for 1 treble, and then we're going to come along and eventually close up this arch over here in 2 more rows, and then you'll understand why this is called the honeycomb. Skip the next 2 stitches. We're basically going to repeat what we just did with the last 8 stitches. So I'll do this for you one more time, and then front post treble in the next stitch as well, And then once again, working behind these 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble here and then in here. So coming in to the hole behind, right there, and front post treble, and then again coming in again, and we work that 2nd stitch. Just to show you how easy it is to work these post stitches around a single crochet. Skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble, and the next 2 stitches, working in front of these 2 stitches, front post treble, and the 2 stitches that were just skipped. Okay, so let me pause and show this to you. So what's going to happen with these honeycombs, they're going to go down and then up, down and then up. As you work across, make sure that you are making these big double-sided V's as you go. If they are crossed in the wrong direction, then you're going to want to double check that. So go ahead and work this across the side, and I'll show you how this ends to the corner. Once you get to the corner, you should have 2 stitches left along this side. This goes for both of the long sides. And then when you get to the corner, work a double crochet, chain 2. Let's go ahead and turn 90 degrees, and another double crochet worked in that chain 2 space. Now working across the short side, we're going to start by working 2 double crochets, 1 in each of the first 2 stitches, and then we're going to go back to working the honeycomb. So skip these next 2 stitches, and again front post treble, the next 2 stitches, and then working behind those 2 stitches, etc., just the way we did along the long side. So go ahead and work the honeycomb row 1 along the short side of this square. So after working this across the short side of the rectangle, we should have 1, 2, 3 stitches left. Go ahead and work double crochets in those stitches. 1, 2, 3, and then again work that chain 2 corner with a double crochet, chain 2, and a double crochet, and then go ahead and repeat that again for the long side. But before we do that, let me just show you, and looking at the long side, just make sure that they're going down, up, down, up, down, up, across, and you should have a total of 6 on the long sides. So go ahead and work this around, and I'll show you the join at the end and how to begin the next round with the honeycomb. After working this all the way around, we double crochet in the last 3 stitches. Make sure you have the same number of stitches on each end, and let me go ahead and give you the stitch count. You should have 39 stitches on the short sides and 53 stitches on the long side for this particular round, giving you a total of 184 stitches. After we do that, we're going to join with the slip stitch to that first stitch of the round, which was forming the corner. And again, do be careful that this stitch, the chain 2, does not count as a stitch in this stitch count. Okay, go ahead, chain 2, and we're going to turn with the back side facing us. So now to start round 22, which is also round 2 of the honeycomb. Remember now, this is a chain, and make sure, if you're not sure, you can always look at the front and see that that is a turning chain. We don't want to treat that as a stitch. So we're going to half double crochet in the standalone double crochets of this round. So whenever you see these extra stitches that aren't part of the honeycomb, just work a half double crochet. And when you have the honeycomb stitches, we're going to work back post double crochets over all of those, and make sure that you work over 8 of these per honeycomb. Okay, so just back post double crochets over those stitches, and again half double crochets in the double crochets that are stand-alone stitches. So go ahead and work that all the way around. When you get to the corners, you can work a half double crochet, chain 2, half double crochet, but I'll work the first corner with you. So after working those half double crochets, I come to the stand-alone stitches. They're not part of the honeycomb. Work half double crochets in each of those. Now we get to the corner, and we're going to work 2 half double crochets, chain 2, and then 2 more half double crochets, and that's going to be every time you get to the corner. So make sure you work 2 half doubles, chain 2, 2 half doubles for each corner as you work this round. Now I've come to the last corner, and I'm just going to work 2 half double crochets, chain 2, and 2 more half double crochets. Then I'm going to work a half double crochet in that last stitch, which was one of the stitches in the corner, and then a slip stitch to the top of the first stitch of the round. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like with the front side facing, and you should have a total of 43 stitches along the short side, and the long side you should have a total of 57 stitches. That would be a total of 200 stitches in the round. So now we're ready. Let's go ahead and give that a chain, and we are having the front side facing, and we're going to slip stitch our way to the corner. This is very important. Okay, get to that chain 2 corner. After slip stitching our way to the corner, go ahead and chain 2. Now we're going to work double crochets with the front side facing for this stitch, and the main reason is having to do with the height of the stitches that we're crocheting. So we're going to crochet 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 more double crochets. I hope this is not too confusing, but I want to be very specific. When you have the front side of your work facing, we will be working with taller stitches, so in order to match the height we need to use double crochets with the front side facing. With the back side facing, we'll be using shorter stitches. When you work back post double crochets, it equals the height of a half double crochet worked in the regular loops of stitches. So that's why we are doing that. So you need to be careful which stitch you use when. So now we, again, front side facing, we're going to use double crochets in these stitches that aren't being utilized in the honeycomb stitch right now. And again, this number will vary depending on which corner you're working on and which side. So we're just going to work those. Now when you get to the honeycomb portion, we're going to skip 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches, working in front of these 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble in the 2 stitches that we just skipped. And again, skip 2 front post treble in the next 2 stitches. And working behind the last 2 stitches that you just worked, we're going to front post treble in this stitch here and here, the 2 that were just skipped. And again, use your thumb and fingers to help you find where these stitches are located. Again, coming back in behind these, and we work this stitch next, right like that. Let's pause and take a look. And you can see now that this has closed in and it looks like a honeycomb. And we're going to do this again. Skip the next two. Front post treble in the next two stitches. Working in front of those last two stitches. Front post treble in the two stitches that I just skipped. And the second part of this, we skip two. Front post treble the next two stitches. Working behind these two stitches, we're going to front post treble here and then here, the two stitches that we just skipped. Okay, so now we have two honeycombs completed. I want you to see how these look. And it's very important as you complete each side to give it a visual check to make sure that you have crossed these in the proper way before going on to the next side. So go ahead and work that all the way around. After working all the way around, I'm going to join with a slip stitch to the first stitch of the round, and let's go ahead and slip stitch our way to the chain 2 corner. And before I turn, let's just take a look at how this is coming out. And I'm going to go ahead and give you the stitch count. This is at the end of round 23. You should have 47 stitches total on the short sides and 61 stitches total on each of the long sides. That's 216 stitches all the way around. So now we're going to go ahead and do that chain 2, and we're going to turn with the back side facing. And again, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches worked on this side, because again, this is the chain 2, and that does not count as a stitch. So working half double crochets, and I'm going to work over the slip stitching that we slip stitched to the corner with. So 1, 2, and then we're going to skip the chain, and then in the next stitch 3, 4, and 5, 6, and 7. Those are the standalone stitches that are not part of the honeycomb. And just like we did 2 rows or 2 rounds before, we're just going to work back post double crochets over each of those honeycomb post stitches. And again, make sure that you have 4 of these for every of the crossings, or 8 back post double crochets for each honeycomb that you work across. So go ahead and work this all the way around, and remember, when you get to the chain 2 corners, we're working half double crochets now, so it'd be 2 half doubles, chain 2, 2 half doubles for that chain 2 corner. At the end of this round, we come to the corner, and we need to form that corner with 2 half double crochets, chain 2, and turn, and 2 more half double crochets, remembering that this here is the turning chain and does not count as a stitch. And we join with a slip stitch just like that. And let's go ahead and turn to see what we have. And you can see the honeycombs are coming out quite nicely, and this is going to look even better once we work another few rounds of this. Okay, so now what we are going to do going forward is we are going to repeat rows, let's see, rows 21, which is the row here, 21, 22, 23, and 24, the 4 rounds. Now, doing so, we're going to have slightly different numbers, because as we begin, well, let me go ahead and let's go ahead and start. So let's go ahead and begin row 25 by slip stitching our way to the chain 2 corner. We're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and we're back to working double crochets for these corners. We're going to work 2 double crochets, chain 2, and let's turn 90 degrees, and then we will make 2 more double crochets in that same place. Now this is where it can get a little bit tricky, but very doable. Each of these honeycombs has 8 stitches in it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's based on an 8 count repeat. So what we're going to do is we're going to count backwards from these extra stitches that are not yet a honeycomb. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8 stitches along this side. That is going to become another honeycomb along the side, and this is how we're going to do that. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and we're going to front post treble in the next 2, working behind those 2 stitches. We're going to work front post trebles in those 2 stitches that we skipped, and we're basically going to repeat round 1 of the honeycomb, which would be the same as round 21, but we're going to have more stitches in this round. Okay, we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches, working in front of those last 2 stitches, we front post treble. Well, let's go ahead and wrap the hook twice. We do front post treble in those 2 stitches that we just skipped. Let's pause a minute and look back. So what we are doing is we are adding an additional honeycomb, and then as you can see, we continue by skipping the next 2 stitches and then continuing on working over this honeycomb. Again, it's working the row that looks just like this, which will form the V's going down and then up all the way across. After we work across, we're going to continue. After we complete this honeycomb here, we are going to be working over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches here, and we're going to work the honeycomb. Now you do have an additional stitch on this side that we need to work in, so make sure that you work in this side, this stitch on this side, and then as we turn to work along the other side of this rectangle, we're going to count backwards again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches. So in this case, you will work a double crochet in this stitch first. Once you complete the chain 2 corner, we work a stitch here, and then we begin the honeycomb over these 8 stitches. Okay, and then the same along this side. After we complete working the honeycomb row 1 over these stitches, then we're going to count 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We will work a honeycomb over these 8 stitches, and then you have 2 stitches left over. You're going to make 1 double crochet here, 1 double crochet there, and then you work the chain, work in the chain 2 corner with your double crochets. And then on this side, you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches. You're going to use all of those stitches for the honeycomb on this side. So go ahead and work this all the way around, and you will be having additional honeycombs. Like on the short side, instead of 4 honeycombs, you're going to have 6. And on this side, instead of 6 honeycombs, you're actually going to have 8 on the long side. So go ahead and work honeycombs row, or the honeycomb row 1 through 4, or repeat rows 21 through 24. But again, your numbers will be slightly different. If you need to look at stitch support, again, the numbers will be slightly more because of the additional honeycombs. But if you want to review, I'll put a little time mark across the bottom of the screen where you can go back and start at row. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you what I have. All right, let me show you what I have. So we have the original honeycomb here that we worked together, and then we repeated it here, again adding the additional honeycombs as the number of stitches, which is a multiple of 8, became available. And then I went beyond that again and repeated rounds 1, 2, and 3 of yet a third honeycomb. So if you're looking at this from where it meets color number 1, so you have 1, 2, and then I worked 1, 2, 3 rounds with the color number 2. So let me go ahead and show you where I've joined the yarn. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this out just a bit, and I'm going to go ahead and make the yarn change to Cascade Yarns Anthem color number 49. This is just a slightly darker hue than the one we've been using. So I'm going to go ahead and join that, and I'm going to work round number 4 of the honeycomb, and then I will give you an assignment after that. Now let me also take the time to make mention that as I've added these additional rounds with the honeycomb, I want to show you the corner and how one was added here and then additional honeycomb was added here. So let me go ahead and give you the stitch count. Right now we have 79 stitches across the short side, and we have 93 stitches across the long side. That gives us a total of 344 stitches in the round, and this again is round 31 where we stopped here. So I'm going to go ahead and work round 32 again after I do my color change with this other yarn, and then I will show you what to do after that. Well, I hope you enjoyed video number 1 of the Throw of Grace. Please join me for video number 2 where we will continue working on this piece. God bless. Bye-bye.